Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the day.
This story is exactly why I avoid any aquatic activity whatsoever. So, in the Florida Panhandle, a woman was swimming at Watersound Beach around 1:20 in the afternoon. She was just past the sandbar when she was bitten by a shark, which is kind of unusual because sharks don't really just bite people out of nowhere. And then reports said that she experienced significant trauma to the midsection of her body and part of her left arm had to be amputated. So we can only imagine how horrific this attack was. And her husband was by her and watched this whole thing go down. So not even 2 hours later, just 4 miles away at Seacrest Beach, 2 teenage girls also were just past the sandbar and they were attacked by a shark.
Yeah, it seems like it's happening more, but I don't know if it's just like they reported in the news more. But I've been just like scrolling on Instagram and stuff, and I see videos that all people are posting throughout Florida, and they're very close. Like these people are standing on the sand and recording these huge sharks that are coming almost to where people are standing on the beach. It's just nuts.
Yeah, and they're saying like proper protocol was after the first attack, they alerted other beaches in the area that a situation had happened, but it takes a couple of hours for them to, alert everybody in the nearby towns. They have flags on the beach that are color-coded, which indicate if the beach is safe or not, which I'm not educated enough with the beach to, look at flags. Would you ever think of to do that?
Well, so we actually went to this beach that this happened
really?
at. Yeah, it's at that place that we went called Topsail. It's like near Destin, kind of in the Panhandle, and we went there, and when we went, there was flags on the beach. So no, I didn't know what they meant, but they were there, and I was like, okay, this means something. So then I looked it up, and there was like a hurricane a brewing in the Gulf, and the waters were really rough. So that's what the color-coded flag meant, but I did have to look it up online to see what it was.
Yeah, but I feel like most people would have no idea. And we only live about an hour from the shore, so it's not like we're totally foreign to the beach, but do they do that at the
their
Jersey
beach
Shore?
is just they have closed it sometimes because the water levels are unsafe. Like there's a lot of algae or bacteria or something. But I mean, we rarely have a hurricane situation. Definitely, I don't think that we've ever had a shark situation. So it's just like our ocean's just like a different league,
Yeah. So basically, the attacks were so close together that they didn't even have enough time to properly warn people and close down the beach, which is kind of nuts. I don't know. They didn't say if it was the same shark. I guess they have no idea, but it seems like it would have to be, right?
I actually wrote a post in the Gross Room once about how they forensically identify what kind of shark attacks people and showed the distance between the teeth marks and the kind of puncture wounds that are present and stuff. It's really interesting, actually. Because they could say, okay, this bite is this wide and only these sharks have a mouth that's that wide. So it narrows it down to that. And then they'll say okay, these sharks are only in these waters. So then it narrows it down further. And then they could tell by the diameter of the teeth, if it was a baby or if it was bigger. So they will actually be able to tell based upon the wounds if they really care to do that.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those obviously a lot of people go in the ocean, on the beach and everything, but you have to remember it is the shark's home. So you are technically going into its home. It's not right that it attacked you, but you have to be aware at all times. I did think it was funny officials were you have to be situationally aware. I don't think when you see the shark, you're willingly hanging around. It probably just happens so fast.
I feel like it's my entire life, it's always been oh, if you don't swim too far out, you're fine. Right? I always thought that if you were standing in the water. No, I know. That's why it's scary. I just always thought that if you were standing in the water close to the beach, that the shark couldn't even get that close. But they just showed a great white shark washed up on some shore in Florida. And the thing is still alive and huge. So they are coming that close to the water or to the edge, so you do have to be aware of that. And we went in that ocean up to our waist, So everybody does it, right? Especially because it feels like bathwater and it's so clear and beautiful. So the thing is that this is a typical news thing. There's only been last year 14 people in the whole entire world died from a shark bite. That's nothing compared to the billions of people that live in the world.
Yeah.
14 people, right? And out of those, they think that 4 of them were provoked, meaning that someone was tantalizing the shark and trying to, like, start shit with the shark, right? But so 10 people were swimming and got killed by a shark. I mean, and people say, like you, I'm not going in the ocean, but yet you get in a car when, like, 10 people every minute die in an accident. Just seriously,
I know I'm in the weird minority.
It's irrational.
I know. I don't like any aquatic activities whatsoever. So just when I hear this, it adds to the list.
You don't like being outside.
I do like being outside.
Me and Ricky were actually making fun of you and saying that the Gaylord Opryland Hotel was perfect for you because you were outside, but you were really inside.
It was so quite
it was
perfect.
Like it was contained. There was no bugs. It was temperature controlled. There was no sunshine. There was nothing that would, like, typically bother you about being outside.
I like being outside. It just has to be really specific situations. Like, I really like being in the mountains. I really don't have issues being in mountain landscapes.
Yeah, but you're, like, on a porch. You don't actually, like, take hikes and stuff through the woods or go kayaking or anything.
Because that involves the water, which I've clearly established on this podcast. I do not like participating in. Anyway, the specialists are saying that, you know, sharks are typically attracted to, like, bruises, cuts, scrapes. They can also be really attracted to jewelry because the shine of the jewelry in the water can mimic scales on fish. So I guess, like, don't wear any anklets or toe rings and just be, like, aware of what you have on in the water.
I just don't believe that when they say they don't typically attack humans. Like, why would they? They're food.
Yeah.
They eat meat and they're meat. And if they're starving enough, like, why wouldn't they? Guess what? Like, I would kill a human and eat it if I was like there was no other food left on Earth, right? I don't want to eat a human, but, like, I don't typically eat humans. But what, don't you do that when you're desperate?
Well,
like,
yeah, we talked about.
Didn't anybody ever see Alive?
Yeah, we talked about that story of the plane crash. What was it? A soccer team?
Yeah, from Uruguay.
Yeah, so the soccer team got in the plane crash and they were, like, stranded in the middle of nowhere and they had to resort to eating each other to live, but they ended up getting out of the situation. So sometimes you got to go to really desperate measures. But
now their reunions are, like, super awkward.
Yeah, I mean, they made this entire show called Yellow Jackets, like, mimicking that event. I think I never watched it, but I heard it was really scary. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. Be situationally aware, as officials say, but I think it's pretty impossible. Like, I don't think you're going to realize the shark's there until it's, like, on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Celebrity news.
All right. Last week, British celebrity Dr. Michael Mosley had been reported missing after he did not return from a walk while on vacation on Simi Island in Greece. So the search took a few days, and eventually his lifeless body was found about a 2-hour walk from where he originally departed. And they only found him because the mayor and some journalists had been on some boat, I guess, in part of the search effort, and had saw him lying face down behind a fence near the edge of the beach.
I don't know this guy, do you?
I don't, but I actually found this story because our good friend Dr. Lindsay Fitzharris had posted about how sad she was that this happened because he was the first person she went on TV with. And he was really awesome with her.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, so she had posted this thing just saying that he made her really comfortable and he was a really nice guy, and all these people have shared stories that he was a really nice person. So this is a bummer, but
yeah, I was going to say, because a lot of people have emailed us on Instagram and through the Gross Room and have said that they wanted us to cover this because they were really upset and devastated by it. But I just wasn't really. I feel like his name sounds familiar, but I don't really know who he is.
Yeah,
they did an autopsy on him, right? They found him, but they had found short circuit TV that he didn't look like he was in any danger, and he kind of looked like he sat down on a rock because he wasn't feeling well. And
yeah, so
that's how he was found.
Yeah, they're saying from surveillance footage that they believe he, like, was going through some type of illness or didn't feel good, and he started, like, stumbling and fell down on the rocks near the beach. And that's when he sat down, and they're believing he sat down because he might have felt like he was going to pass out or something. They did say it was extremely hot that day. So I wonder if that's what ultimately, they didn't reveal his official cause of death, right? They just said they knew it was from natural causes.
Yeah, so they looked at his body, and of course, if it's that hot and you're laying out, essentially bathing on a rock, then he was probably had some kind of decomposition when his body was found. Yeah, because
it was like 4 days before they found his body.
In the sun like that is definitely not good. But they said that he had his hand over his chest, as if he was having pain in his chest. Yeah. You know what I mean? And sometimes if someone has never had a heart attack and then they have a heart attack, sometimes you can't see evidence of it grossly, like with your naked eye in the heart muscle, because it's recent and it hasn't caused any scarring yet in the heart. If you have a person that's had a couple heart attacks and then you look at their heart attack at autopsy, or look at their heart at autopsy, you could see the scars from the previous heart attacks. So if this was his first one, the next thing would be to look at his heart and his coronary arteries, which you can see if they are occluded or blocked or not. But normally, just to confirm that it was definitely a heart attack, they would look at a piece of the heart muscle under the microscope, because you can see it under the microscope if there was death to the heart muscle.
That's really interesting. I was wondering, remember we had covered that family of hikers that all died? I was wondering if...
Oh, yeah, I think they had hyperthermia, though, right?
Yeah, hyperthermia. I was curious if it could have possibly been, like, severe dehydration because of how hot it was, but... Yeah, I mean, it seems just like a really unfortunate event that he just was, like, trying to go on a walk, and then this happened.
Yeah, and that's something to always keep in mind, because even when you're talking about that family of hikers, they were young. I think they were only in their 30s, and they had a little baby with them, and they all died. And the dog, and they all died. And when you hear about how much water that they had on them, it just, to be in those kinds of elements for that many hours, it never would have been enough water to, like, they had enough water on them that you would take to go walk around the block of your house or something, like, not in a situation like that. And then people realize that they're in trouble, and, like, what was he going to do if this guy, especially this guy, he was on a hike, it sucks because it seems like he wasn't too far away from being able to find somebody to help him.
Yeah, they said something that he was only like 90 seconds away from help, which is so sad.
Yeah, it is sad, especially because so many times when people have a heart attack, you could get CPR and go to the hospital and survive. So and he was young too, right? In his 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I hate hearing stuff like that.
All right, so our next story is about Tisha Campbell. She recently revealed that she's been in remission from, you say this one,
sarcoidosis.
All right, so what is sarcoidosis?
So it's an autoimmune disease, and I was just telling you about that yesterday with some couple days ago with someone that has multiple pulmonary nodules. Mm-hmm. So it's an autoimmune disease that causes inflammation, and it causes these nodules that you could get in your skin and your lungs called granulomas, which are just like a clump of inflammatory cells. And remember we did a celebrity death dissection in the gross room on Bernie Mac back in like 2021, I think.
Yeah.
It was like a long time ago. So he had that too. So what happens is it's the same as all autoimmune diseases. They can range from mild to severe. It tends to be more severe in African American people. Everyone can get it, but it seems to be worse in Black people. And once they get treatment, it could be in remission. Like, it never gets healed, it never goes away, but they can be in remission. So she's saying that she's in remission. She first got diagnosed when it was when she had her first kid, right? She started feeling like she had a cold, and she just had a cough that wouldn't go away. That's like a very classic presentation of this like dry cough that doesn't go away. And once she got worked up, they saw that she had multiple nodules in her lungs. And then she got pregnant again, and pregnancy in itself could just like trigger this stuff to get worse. So it got like a little bit more severe, but now she has it under control.
Yeah, so that's definitely good to hear. It's kind of crazy that they both died, or not both died, that they both had this condition.
Yeah, well, they didn't say that he technically died from it.
Yeah.
But I kind of disagree with that, because he had pneumonia, but he got the pneumonia because he was on the medications for the sarcoidosis, which can make you immunosuppressed, which could make you more prone to getting pneumonia. So I feel like it's maybe not the exact cause, but like a secondary cause. But yeah, what is she in anyway? Because I used to love that show Martin when I was like a teenager or early. I feel like I was a teenager when that show came out, and I loved it. And she was in that.
She was in Martin, and then she was in My Wife and Kids, which that's like what I'm familiar with her from, because Joan and Joe used to watch that all the time.
Oh,
yes.
Really?
I always
I never saw anything that she was in after Martin.
No, I liked My Wife and Kids a lot, so that show's good. I don't think I've ever seen Martin. Maybe I have to go back and watch it.
I don't know. Like, I feel like I used to watch it and like think it was like the funniest shit ever, but that was seriously in the 90s.
I had watched this really good. You know, like CNN does those specials every couple months.
Oh, like where, like for what, the 1990s?
Yeah,
or
they did
like
one
that?
called History of the Sitcom or something that was a couple part
Okay.
series, and they talked about Martin a lot on that one. That special is really cool if anybody's interested in like the history of television. It just really got into like, you know, on Mary Tyler Moore, she said she was on birth control and everybody was like, cancel that show. This is problematic. Just like what was going on in history at the time these shows were coming out.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually.
That show's really cool because even if you're not interested in television history per se, it's cool to see what was going on in just history and pop culture during those decades. So
yeah, because now when we think about that, it's just like, okay,
yeah,
like that's nothing, right?
Exactly.
It's the same thing when you look back at like Elvis being controversial for like shaking his like pelvis, and you're just like, God, I wish that was the least of our worries now, right?
Yeah, me and Rachel saw the Elvis movie when it came out, and they were showing him like he would shake his hips and girls would pass out, and we were cracking up because we were like, no, how ridiculous.
It's true. It's even with the Beatles though, like women would like pass out screaming. It's just, I just don't know anyone in the world that I would do that for, except Gabe, of course. But
all right, so Tisha has said that she's dedicated her time to maintaining her stress levels, which she said were really problematic for her, and just, you know, exercising and keeping a good diet, and that's really helped with her.
Yeah, that's great. She's so cute too.
I know. She's beautiful.
I'm happy she's doing well.
Yeah. All right, so this next one commence major eye roll. So Nick Cannon has revealed that Dr. Squatch, which is the men's body care company, has taken out an insurance policy on his testicles for $10 million.
Oh my God. He's such an attention whore.
I know.
So wait, what is the insurance on his balls for? Like, what do his balls do? Besides, isn't this the guy that has like 20 kids or something?
For those that don't know, Nick Cannon's like this TV personality. He's been on MTV forever. I think he used to sing. I'm like majorly flopping on this part of my pop culture history. Anyway, his first children were with Mariah Carey. She has twins with him. Those were his first kids. He now has 12 children. And most of these kids have been born in the last couple of years, and some of them are only born like a month or two apart because he just keeps impregnating all these different women.
Are they all okay with this?
I guess he has an arrangement with them. I've heard he's like going to inherit $1 billion from his family. Like he comes from a very wealthy family, and then
like Cannon, like the cameras.
No, I think that's spelled different. I don't think that's him. But I've heard he comes from a really wealthy family, so he just grew up in really wealthy situation, and he's been on TV forever, so he is independently wealthy himself. He was with Mariah Carey. I'm sure there's money involved in that situation somehow, but I guess he has an arrangement with these women, like, I'm not going to be with you, I'm not going to be your boyfriend, but you're going to have my kid, and I'll come over and see the kids. And he, like, every year takes Christmas card pictures with all the kids and, like, rotates seeing them out, I guess. I don't think this is right.
That's really good it's really good for their mental health. They're going to be totally normal when they grow up.
I don't think this is right to just keep having kids and then barely being a presence in their life at all. I don't think people understand how much that affects a child in that situation. I guess the mothers are also consciously making this decision, so
his balls are getting insured so he could keep having kids?
Yeah, I guess so. So I guess what they're saying is, like, they assessed his assets based on size, his favorite features, his bedroom maneuvers, whatever that means. But basically then the men's care company made a commercial making fun of this, saying he had balls of gold and he's keeping humanity alive, the population afloat, and that he has 12 kids that he knows of. So I don't really think this is funny.
So they do, this is, whatever. It's all of it is for attention, though, right? It's just, but they do this. There's, Heidi Klum had insured her legs, I think, for $1 million. J-Lo insured her butt, I'm pretty sure.
I don't understand how you could insure one body part.
What's that girl named Holly Madison?
Holly Madison.
She insured her boobs. But the thing is that it's difficult to get insurance policies for these types of ridiculous things because, like, that I'm going to go insure my brain because I can't work if something happens. I don't know. But, I mean, you have to go and prove that you have this. Your boobs are like making you money and they're better than everybody else's and they deserve to be insured or something. It's ridiculous, but guess who does it? Celebrities, because they have money to spend. Because a regular person, their insurance premium is probably like $10,000 a month or whatever, something ridiculous. And they're like, oh, that's nothing to them. So they buy these ridiculous things. But normal people wouldn't do that.
But how are his balls making him money? He has to pay for all these children.
Well, maybe does he sell like a cream for balls through that company?
It seems like, they're doing a collaboration. But like,
yeah, so that's probably why, because now they're saying that his balls are making him money or they're making the company money or something.
It's just, the whole thing is ridiculous. Like, he's been a laughingstock in Hollywood for the last couple of years because he just keeps popping out all these children and everybody has the same argument as me. Like, he can't possibly spending substantial enough time with these children. If anything, his presence is probably more harmful to them because he's only briefly in their lives.
Some people think that money is all that you need and you could just hire all the people in the world to take care of whatever. So.
And Mariah Carey's probably telling her twins, like, don't even pay attention to that douchebag. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. Like, I'll be your mom and your dad. Just don't even worry about that. It's not, I don't know. It's not fair. Like, I don't have a problem with people having lots of kids. I just think you should try your best to do it where they have the best quality of life, not just because you think it's a fun thing to do.
Well, clearly he thinks that, like, his balls are better than everyone else's, so, like, because that's all that matters,
Elon
right?
Musk is guilty of this, too. He keeps procreating with a bunch of different people, too. It's like, chill out.
Get over yourself, bro.
Yeah. Side note, though, I think we should try to get Holly Madison on the show because she figured out later in her life that she had autism, and she's involved in a bunch of these true crime cases that I think our audience would really like.
I'd like to talk to her. That would be cool.
I loved Girls Next Door.
I am curious about the adult diagnosis of autism.
Yeah. So
I would love to talk to her.
Maybe we'll try to reach out and see what happens. But all right, next. Actress Jennifer Esposito revealed on Jamie Lynn Sigler and Christina Applegate's podcast that she was diagnosed with the, quote, worst case of celiac disease her doctors had ever seen. So Jamie Lynn Sigler, are you familiar with her? She was Meadow on Sopranos.
I never watched Sopranos.
I can't believe you've never watched Sopranos. So
I know. Everybody thinks that's shocking. I never watched it.
She was the daughter on Sopranos. Christina Applegate, we know, is on a million shows. She was on Married with Children. She on everything.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Anchorman. They both have
all the great things.
They both have MS, so they have a podcast where they talk about health and stuff. So Jennifer Esposito went on their show to talk about her celiac journey. She said she had watched people in her family experience issues with their health and thought it was normal that if you just kept having a major problem, you'd cover it up with a pill. Doesn't this sound familiar to her family?
Yes.
So she said she was dealing with fatigue, hair loss, difficulty walking, vomiting, sinus infections, and more. Her health continued to decline until she was in really bad shape. She said she was going to the doctor and she kept getting blown off a lot. This is also a topic we cover so much here, which is people go to the doctor and they get blown off. Finally, she went to one doctor that referred her to another and they figured out she had celiac disease.
Yeah, which is simple to start working up with blood work and endoscopy. It's not that difficult to diagnose it really, but this is the same thing happened with us, like going to neurologist after neurologist, and nobody ever. There's some people in medicine that just don't really believe that you could heal yourself by the foods that you eat. And I mean, I was getting treated for migraines for so many years, being given all these insane pills, like anti-seizure drugs.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. Who knows how they damaged my brain, really, over the course of all those years. And finally, I just, after doing research on my own and stuff, was like, okay, I'm going to cut out gluten. And I did. And it just changed my life as far as getting migraines anymore. Just, I mean, it would be to the point where I couldn't go to work until later, or I couldn't get out of bed for a couple hours. I was like, I just have to go lay down for 2 hours until this goes away. And none of that anymore, just from cutting out gluten. So it's just a matter of people not knowing the other symptoms that come with it, because a lot of people just associate celiac with diarrhea, weight loss.
Yeah.
There's just so many other, you could have skin manifestations. There's so many other symptoms that you could present with.
I mean, with both of our migraine situations, you know, it's like, I don't even know if I said this when I just went to the neurologist a couple weeks ago. So when I first went to the neurologist, I was having 17 migraine days a month, which is insane to be having migraines that often. I went there and he didn't really ask me that many questions about my lifestyle or anything. He was just like, I'm going to put you on Topamax, which is an anti-seizure medication, and then gave me Imitrex, which is a migraine medication for when I had breakthroughs. So I'm on this super intense medication. You had been on it before and were like, listen, you're going to get tingling in your hands and feet. Your memory's going to be slow, like all this stuff, right? He didn't tell me.
It wasn't even like that stuff is all minor. I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like I still have side effects of that like what is happening in my brain, I have a hard time getting out of my mouth because I was on a high dose of that for years.
Yes.
For like 5 years.
Yes. So you told me that this was going to be a thing. So I had no idea. I remember making a doctor's appointment one day and they were like, what's your phone number? And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I've had the same phone number since I was 13 years old. I was like, I don't know what it is, which is scary. So eventually, you know, I started having stomach issues. I cut out eating gluten because I figured out that was bothering my stomach. And then, shocker, my headache started going away. And then I was having less migraine days a month. And then last year, I started taking a daily vitamin that has magnesium and B12 and all these other things in it. Again, these things were never mentioned. I think I have one headache every 6 weeks, and it's directly correlated to my menstruation.
Yeah, it's just nuts.
So then I go there a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm barely having headaches because sometimes I do need the breakthrough medication. And he's like, oh, like he cured me. And I'm like,
yeah, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And gluten causes, some people have, and a lot of it is because of the way that it's grown now as opposed to how it used to be grown. That's why you're seeing an increase of it. And people just have inflammation because of it. Everyone doesn't, but some people are more sensitive to it than others. Some people can't even have a breadcrumb because it throws their whole entire GI system off.
Yeah.
There's just different ranges of it. And I'm just glad to see that she figured out. I kind of think it's nuts that she said she had eliminated all this stuff from her diet, like gluten, and I don't know why she cut out soy and dairy and sugar.
And
it's
corn,
just like, all right.
which is so hard to avoid corn products when you're gluten-free.
Yeah, but actually whenever, because now that I haven't had gluten for all these years, right? Whenever I get bloated, I'm just like, okay, I must have had an exposure. But every single time I look at it and it's like a product that has corn in it.
Really?
So yeah, like it's known to make people like gassy. It's a vegetable that breaks down like that. Like
it is just crazy, like the way you get blown off, because like I went to a holistic doctor the other day and like she sat with me for a straight up hour and a half and went through like my entire lifestyle habits with me. I feel like that's how it should go when you're having a problem.
That's why I told you to go to her, because she's helpful. Like you don't always need to take drugs to make things go away. Sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do.
There's some and I take like Fioricet if I do get a migraine, it's like it's a miracle drug. Like it makes it go away. It's the only thing in the world for me that makes it go away.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I take Ubrelvy for mine, and when I take it, I don't get another one until for 6 weeks, you know? So
But-
it works really
but,
good.
like,
But
Yeah, there's definitely like lots of drugs out there that are miracle drugs, but people are on way too many of them and don't need to
and
be.
just
You could fix a lot of
with
things.
simple changes in your life, like changing the foods you eat and just going, like she told me, just going on a 20-minute walk every day could significantly change my life. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
It's just nuts the way people get blown off. Like, I just feel like every week we just report on these horrific stories.
Well, a lot, you just have to keep in mind all the time that the medical field in general, a large portion of it is financially compensated through pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, yeah.
So you always have to take that in mind, that doctors are making money off of it, hospitals are making money off of it. It's just the way it is.
Everybody should watch Dope Sick on Hulu because it really focuses on the pharmaceutical side of the opioid epidemic and the incentives the salespeople were getting. So it's just horrific. All right.
Freak accidents.
I really hope my husband's not listening to this podcast today because this is truly his worst fear ever. So, Ricky, if you're listening, turn it off now. In Indonesia, a 45-year-old woman went missing. After she failed to return home, her husband found belongings and got suspicious. So the husband and fellow villagers went searching and found a 16-foot python with a, quote, large belly. They decided to cut open the snake, and inside they found the missing woman fully clothed and deceased.
Is this a news story? Because I swear when I read this, I was like, I posted a video of this like 2 years ago in the gross room of a snake in Indonesia being cut open and then pulling a woman out fully dressed.
Well,
does this happen like often?
They said in the article that this is not necessarily rare, but it is unlikely to happen.
All right. Well, if you're interested in your gross room members, that video is a post that is titled Dinner.
She had literally been swallowed whole by this python. So then, of course, I went to YouTube to try to envision this, right? So I watched 4 YouTube videos of pythons eating whole alligators or crocodiles.
You go on the gross room and watch a python eating a whole human. There's a little lady that's inside of the stomach of this python.
It is insane the way these snakes like wrap their body around and like trap the people and then just like unhinge their jaw and like suck them in essentially.
Why is this a fear of Ricky's at all? There is no snake that's even remotely that large that lives in America, and he's never going to Indonesia.
No, not getting swallowed whole by a snake is his biggest fear. He just Indiana Jones style hates snakes. So
if he stays in Jersey, he would never even have to have access to a snake besides one that's the size of an earthworm.
I can't explain it.
Oh my God.
All right, next. A video surfaced online allegedly showing 2 people getting electrocuted in a hot tub at a Mexican resort. So this video popped up showing a bunch of people crowded around a hot tub and screaming, and 2 people were pulled out. One of them got CPR. Witnesses claimed that this surge of electricity shot through the hot tub, which electrocuted the 2 people. So I want to ask you first, does electrocution mean that you've died by...
Yeah, exactly.
So they were...
I can't stand how shit is written. They had an electric shock.
So they were shocked.
That's it.
Okay.
Yes, but that doesn't sound as dramatic as electrocution. So write that in the story title and don't worry about that. It's completely inaccurate.
Yeah, so...
Nobody died. One person may have had CPR, went to the hospital, and the other person like got up and walked around, right?
Yeah, so and looked, quote, confused. So they're saying ambulances showed up to treat the people, but the resort is not commenting on what happened. Nobody's really commenting on what happened, so they don't know if more people were affected or what exactly was the cause. I feel like we talked about a story like this before with a hot tub electrocuting someone. Maybe not on here.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
All right, next. Another, an actual electrocution story. A 16-year-old teen in Italy was in the bath on the phone with her friend. Her phone was on low battery, so she had it plugged into the wall and was holding the phone plugged in over the bathtub. The call suddenly dropped, so the friend had called police because she got worried about it. And then they showed up to the house. The girl was electrocuted to death, and it appears that she had dropped the phone with the charger still in it in the tub.
This might happen more often than we even hear about, because this sounds like something that people wouldn't even really think about. But it's, you know how there's always, I actually have another post of this in the gross room of someone that, wasn't it a person that was found dead in the bathtub that put like a hairdryer or a radio or something inside of the bathtub?
I think your post was a radio, but there is an episode of 6 Feet Under that I will never forget in my life, where a lady had a hairdryer on the counter, and I think her cat knocked it over, and the switch got hit on the way down, and she was in the tub, and it electrocuted her and killed her.
Was it on?
Yeah, like when the cat knocked it, hit the switch.
That seems like a stretch.
It was a total stretch, but you know, at the beginning of every episode, they show how the person died.
That was such a good show. I love that show.
But I'll never forget that.
Yeah, so the one in the gross room is like a guy that's in the bathtub. But I remember just, you know, even when you buy a new hairdryer now, it's like, don't use it in the shower. And
who
I always
used
used to think, like, who?
Or
I don't know. But the new thing is, like, phones are people. I listen to podcasts when I'm taking a shower. The girls listen to music when they're taking a shower. It's just, I mean, I think. So since we just recently got the bathroom redone, there's like all these rules that you're not allowed to have an outlet near the tub when they were putting new outlets in the bathroom. Like, because remember you got Gabe that towel warmer thing for Father's Day or something? We're never able to plug it in because there's no plug anywhere near the tub.
Speaking of, I don't know what to get him for Father's Day this weekend.
You know what you should do? You should take the towel warmer that's still in the corner where the bathtub is and wrap it up again and give it to him. I dare you to do that. That would be hilarious.
I will. You're going to have to.
He'll get so uncomfortable. It'll be great.
Okay, give it to me tomorrow.
Just put it like in a giant Amazon box or something. And be like, motherfucker, you never used this. Like, here's your hint. Plug it in.
Okay, tomorrow, make sure. Wait, all right. Tomorrow, give it to me tomorrow.
Yeah. When he goes out and gets his coffee, I'll hide it. He won't even notice. You know what? He has a plant on top of it. He's using it as a plant stand right now.
Oh my God, what a dick!
It never has been plugged in once.
All right,
so he is. It'll sit there for 5 years. So that would be hilarious if you did that.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about with the plugs, because I remember the electrician at your house said that there's those buttons in the middle that like automatically turn it off if it detects moisture.
Yeah.
Know? So at least they're like putting some error prevention in there, but that is kind of crazy. All based off of people's stupid actions.
I don't think that's that stupid. I just think that people just, that especially a teenager.
I don't think her action was stupid. I'm more so talking about like bringing a blow dryer into the shower or like a radio into the shower. This next one's really sad. So a 19-year-old college freshman and her friends decided to take what they thought was Percocets one night. It ended up being 100% fentanyl. The girl died. Her other friend that took it nearly died. And the third friend that didn't take it watched her 2 friends die.
We talked about
her
this.
One friend died and the other one gets sick.
We talked about this in the celebrity death dissection of Prince. This is kind of how Prince died. Like, he was buying illegal drugs and took a pill that he thought was, or pills that he thought was a prescription drug like Percocet, and it ended up being counterfeit fentanyl. And in that post, you guys should really check it out, because I show what the Percocet looks like, a real one that you would get from the pharmacy, and then what one of the counterfeit ones look like. They absolutely look like the same exact pill, same shape, same color, same imprint. You would never know that they were fake.
Yeah, so one of the girls had bought the pills over social media, which I think we all can agree, don't buy drugs from strangers.
How is it that there's all these restrictions on my account and every single other person I know, and you could buy drugs on social media?
It's just the way it is.
How do you, wait, what is that? Like, do you know anything about this? Buying drugs over social media? Like, who do you get them from?
No, but
is it Instagram, TikTok?
I'm pretty naive to a lot of this stuff. Like, Ricky and I are always talking about situations where I'm totally like unaware of what's going on in front of me.
Yeah, I'm unaware of what's going on because I don't even know how you would go about that. And I don't know I don't have TikTok or Snapchat. Is it one of those things?
I'm sure it's just a guy that has, I mean, there are pages of people that sell weed that post of all the weed they sell. And this was like before it was like legalized or recreationalized or whatever, you know? So like it's been going on forever. It's the same with porn. Like they say they're against porn, but like all those pages don't get deleted, yet you're trying to educate the public about diseases and you're shadow banned. So they have personal vendettas or they just can't keep up with it. And it doesn't help that AI is running a lot of their systems. So,
well, these people that are making these counterfeit drugs aren't pharmacists, clearly. They're not educated people to determine how many milligrams of something goes in to a pill. And fentanyl is 50 times stronger than something like a Percocet, or even really more. It's 50 times more potent than heroin. Like it's probably over 100 times more potent than a Percocet, you know? Do you know that last year there's been 75,000 people died from a fentanyl overdose? And people think, oh, they're just druggies, whatever, right? It's not. That's not what it is. I mean, this girl, right? How old was she? 19?
Yeah.
She's with her friends. She shouldn't be taking Percocets, but guess what? Kids try drugs, okay? That just happens. They were chilling in the house and wanted to take a Percocet. Whatever, like, I'm not condoning it, but you can't sit there and act like it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
But she took one pill and is dead. She's not a junkie.
This actually happened in Runnymede, which is the town next to where we grew up. There was a 16-year-old girl, and she was going out with, like, a slightly older guy. I think he was 19 or 20, and he was doing heroin. And then she did it one time, but took his dose that he had built up to over the years, and she died on the first time she took it because the dose was too high.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that story because I was around that age when it happened, and it like really shook the community, and it's just really sad. And, you know, I understand people take pills and stuff. Like, I got Percocets when I got my wisdom teeth taken out, and I have never thrown up so bad in my life. I don't know how people take them recreationally.
But people don't get sick from them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the reality. Like, there's a huge problem with it in our country. But regardless, like, the more important lesson is just to teach kids. And I started already with the kids. Like, don't ever take something like that you didn't get out of a bottle from your own house. Like, you really shouldn't even be doing it anyway. But
be smart.
It's like telling kids not to drink and telling kids not to smoke. They do it. So just make sure that they know something as simple as that. Like, steal it from your grandmom and don't buy it off of someone on Instagram or something.
Yeah, you shouldn't buy anything like that ever off of social media or Facebook Marketplace or anything over the internet. It's 100%
You really shouldn't buy like anything that you could ingest.
Yeah.
Right? Like you were even if there was like a person that made cookies that you liked and they weren't like a legit business, you really shouldn't just be buying like food off of people like that.
No.
'Cause you don't, I mean, not that a legit business you couldn't get hurt either, but at least when you're trying to do a bakery or something from your house, you have to go through like X amount of things in order to get certified that you're handling food and stuff properly. It's just not a good idea to do that.
Yeah, it's really not. All right, so in Maine, a woman and her husband were walking along the beach when suddenly she sank into the ground. Her husband turned around and was like, "Where are you?" And she was waist deep in the sand. At first, she thought she fell through a hole that kids had dug, which we've talked about on here a few times, how dangerous that could be, but it ended up being quicksand on this beach.
So, this reminds me of, like, Princess Bride, right?
Yeah. I haven't watched that in a while.
So, in 2005, they did a study on quicksand because it's just been in, like, pop culture and history forever and found that it's not really a thing that could ever suck you fully into the ground, but you can definitely go waist deep. And the biggest concern with death is that if you're walking through a beach and you get sucked in like that lady did, like what if she was by herself?
Yeah.
And then it was low tide and then all of a sudden the tide came in, like she could have drowned if she was stuck like that. But you can't, it's not something that we should fear that you're going to get sucked in and like buried alive.
Well, what if you were like a little kid?
No, it has something to do with the particles and like how much it could pull you in. because it's all it is extremely wet sand.
Yeah.
So it's they did all of these studies, like scientific studies, and just determined it's not like a kid could get pulled in too, but just halfway.
Yeah. So officials are saying if this happens to you and your like shoes come off or you lose something, just get out. Don't worry about your belongings. They could be replaced, but you don't want to get stuck in there.
Yeah, but how do you get out if you're in the middle of the beach? Like, you don't have a guy named Wesley there with a giant sword cutting down a vine to save you.
She definitely said if her husband wasn't there, she would have had a total panic attack, which I think we could agree almost anybody would have a total panic attack. Maybe you were able to dig your way out. I don't really know. It's just scary to think about, but don't worry about like if other things get stuck in there. Just worry about getting yourself out of it. This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, we talk about The Gross Room all the time on Mother Knows Death, and just today alone, we have so many cases of Bernie Mac and Prince celebrity death dissections, as well as must-see videos, including the one that's titled Lunch, that shows a woman that was ingested whole by a python, just similar to a story that we reported on this week. It's awesome, great community of people. We get to comment back and forth to each other, and the same people go on every single day to check what's new. Lots of articles. It's awesome. And every single week we do a new celebrity death dissection or a high-profile death dissection. So there's always going to be a big article explaining like different diseases, different ways people were murdered, different accidents people have had, but relating to real life events that happened.
Yeah, so you can visit thegrossroom.com for more info.
All right, let's get started with violent crime.
So what started out as a theft investigation turned into something so much worse. So employees at the Spanish Olympic Committee in Madrid had asked security guards if they would review surveillance video to look into a potential theft. As they were reviewing footage, however, they saw that a 67-year-old security guard at the facility was jerking off into his coworkers' water bottles not once, but 6 times.
Oh my God. That is so disturbing.
It's so disgusting.
So, and what did they say? Like, did they know that this was going on, or they were completely shocked when they were told about this?
So apparently, not that long before they made this discovery, the 2 female coworkers had reported that, you know, they had noticed their water bottles that had been moved. I don't even think they reported it. They just had said out loud, like, oh, weird that my water bottle's been moved. Oh, it smells weird. It tastes weird. So they were drinking it, not realizing this guy was taking their cups and jerking off into them. So when they confronted him about it, they said he was doing it as revenge because they were mean to his wife, who also worked at the facility, but all witnesses are saying that's not even possible.
And if you're his wife, are you okay with this? Because that's disgusting.
Yeah, and they're saying the wife had absolutely no idea this was even going on.
He should go to jail for a long time for this. You can spread sexually transmitted infections through drinking semen. Seriously, like that's terrible.
Yeah, so he has been arrested. Well, he was arrested in January and charged with moral corruption and sexual assault. The police were just able to come out with this information. I guess there was a gag order on it, but how absolutely repulsive.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that should be, I don't know how, you know, when they charge people, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that woman that knew she had HIV and was still having sex with people and stuff, that you can get in like serious trouble for that. You can give someone HPV, which is known to cause throat cancer. You can give someone gonorrhea, chlamydia, even HIV technically. I mean, it's hopefully the guy didn't have anything, but it is sexual assault. He should have got charged with that at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine how damaged I would be from something like this the rest of my life. Like not trusting anybody ever giving you a drink, not being able to leave your drink.
Again, falls under the category of I don't want to know. Just don't tell me.
Exactly. Okay.
All right, let's get on the medical news.
New research suggests that consuming ultra-processed vegan food can increase the risk of heart disease.
This isn't a shock to me either. I remember when the whole vegan thing started in the late 90s, you know, and I had all these friends that would be, well, vegetarian, vegan. it just wasn't as common as it is now, you know, when I was younger. And it would be like we would go to McDonald's and they would only eat fries or something. And it was like every single time we ate, they ended up only eating the shittiest food that didn't have meat in it or something, right? And then that progressed to all these Impossible burgers and this and that. And you just think like, this can't be good. It's just filled with dyes and stuff to make it look like meat. And sure enough, it's actually worse for you than regular meat is, according to this study. They did say that people that had a plant-based diet had better heart health, but that's like a real plant-based diet where you're eating fruits and vegetables, like fresh ones, beans, things like that, and whole grains. They did have an increased risk of increased chance of having better heart health. But for people like so many that we know that are vegan, that eat all of this crazy stuff that's filled with salt and barely has any nutrition in it whatsoever. There's not. Sometimes you look at the packages of them, they have like no protein in them. They're filled with sugar, they're filled with salt, high sodium levels, you know, and yeah, it's actually causing a 12% rise in heart-related deaths.
Well, I'm not surprised by this at all because I worked at a restaurant in South Philly for 5 years, and half of our menu was vegan, and I think people think the word vegan equals healthy, and as we could tell from this study and a lot of other lifestyle habits, that's not the case. I would seriously have people say to me like, I'm getting the vegan wings because they're healthier than chicken wings. And they weren't, because they were deep fried bread, essentially, covered in a buttery sauce instead of actually having some protein that chicken has, right? So this was just a common misconception. It happened all the time. People were just like, oh, if I eat a vegan cheesesteak, that's healthier. And I'm like, no, you're eating sauteed seitan, which is a gluten-based fake protein, in bread with melted fake cheese. There's no nutrients in this whatsoever. It is horrible for you.
I mean, I think things like that are okay to have in moderation.
Yeah, totally.
If you're at, like, let's say you're vegan and you're at the Phillies game, like, okay, you could get a vegan cheesesteak. That's awesome, right? And it tastes good because they use whatever chemicals they make to make it taste like the real thing. But I think some people have substituted that stuff as their entire diet.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, is like, what you're saying is plant-based diets can be extremely healthy if you're actually eating like whole foods and you're making it yourself and everything. But just because it's labeled as vegan and if it's deep fried and everything certainly does not mean it's healthier. No. And a lot of people at the place I worked really overindulged on that stuff and just were like preaching to everybody that it was so much healthier, and you're like, it's really not.
Okay.
But yeah. All right, so this next one, a forceful sneeze caused a man's colon to fall out of his body. So, this story is ridiculous. A 63-year-old man had prostate cancer and had recently undergone abdominal surgery. So one morning he had his stitches removed from that surgery, was just trying to have a cute little breakfast with his wife, had a, quote, forceful sneeze, and noticed that he had pain in his abdomen and that some of his bowel was protruding through.
So what happened was he had prostate cancer and he had his prostate removed they removed his bladder too, because he had a surgery called a cystectomy, which is removing your bladder and prostate gland. They removed both of these things and he had an incision. I wouldn't really consider it to be like an abdominal incision. It's pretty like low, but pelvic, it's bottom, like under your belly button basically, right? And he had the surgery. Everything was successful. He had it sutured, the wound sutured. He went to get the sutures removed, and you know, the sutures are closing up your abdomen that keeps all your guts inside, right? So when he sneezed really hard, he busted open that wound that had just healed not too long, right? They usually keep sutures in for like 6 weeks or something like that. And yeah, all of his intestines poured out of the incision when it ripped open. And this, I know that you think this sounds crazy, but this happens. Again, a post in the grocery room I did about a woman who had a hysterectomy and her intestines came out of her vagina.
Oh my God.
Because the incision ended up being a weakness that was allowed the intestines to come out of her vagina. But it does happen from time to time, and fortunately, well, one of the things is that they called 911 and the paramedics said that he had a 3-inch vertical laceration with intestines protruding, which pisses me off because it's not a laceration. It was from an incisional wound made by a scalpel blade. So not a laceration. They must not have heard my lecture. But regardless, yeah, so the good news is that you go back to the hospital and you get sewn back up and everything's all good. But I can imagine, I always think that these injuries that cause what's called evisceration or your organs to come out must be completely disturbing. It probably didn't hurt him too bad. I mean, aside from like that incision ripping open, he might not have had much feeling there anyway, just because he just had a recent incision there and you have a lot of numbness and tingling. But yeah, disturbing to say the least. And then he also said that he covered his intestines with his shirt not to freak his wife out. So, good story, but he's going to be all right.
Awesome.
All right, other death news.
Next time you steal a car, you might want to check if a dead body's inside, because this woman in Texas thought it would be a good idea to steal a mortuary van outside of a hospital and did not realize that a dead person was in the back.
So what happens is when you die, your body goes down to the morgue refrigerator at the hospital, and either the medical examiner's office comes to pick up the bodies to bring them to get autopsies if it was if someone got shot or something like that, or if they died in a car accident. And if they are just going to the funeral home, a funeral home will come pick them up. So there's always, this is like the dark side of the hospital that most people don't see, but there's always vans, sometimes even hearse in the back picking up bodies. But it's usually in the back of the hospital, tucked away. But one of the hospitals I worked at for a long time was in the middle of the city, so there's only like so much tucking away you could do, So when these funeral vans or ones from the medical examiner's office would pull up, they would be in an area right down a little alley that was very accessible to patients and being able to go down there and look and see what was going on. Or just people walking around the city in general. So that's what happened. There was already a body in the van, and this could have even been a funeral home had, let's say they were in Philadelphia and they had one pickup at University of Penn and one at Jefferson. Like they would maybe stop at one hospital and get a body, stop at another hospital and get a body, and then go back to the funeral home. So completely possible. Although I actually have never seen that, and I used to release bodies all the time. I never saw them pick up multiple bodies at one time. And the reason probably is that they're probably not supposed to do it, because when the person that's driving the van has to go into the hospital to get the other body, then like who's watching the body in the van? That's, I mean, really, like, listen, this lady shouldn't have stole this car, but like that body and that car should not have been unattended like that, because that could have went really bad, like. What if she crashed it and it caught on fire and that was like your grandpa?
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
The whole thing's horrible. I'm imagining, like, in those vans, is it one of those where behind the driver's seat the wall's closed off, or can you see that there's something in the trunk? Like, do you think?
No, you can see something's in the trunk. It's usually, sometimes it's like a minivan, but all the seats are out. It's always, they're all different things, the way they have it hooked up.
Okay, so like, I'm picturing, so they're saying according to surveillance video, she stole this car and then they see her leave the car and run out of it really fast, right? And the best part of this story is that she dumped the car at a local zoo. Like, she drove it 2 miles. I imagine she's driving along on this high that she stole this car. She looks like she has some substance abuse issues based on her mugshot. And she probably looked in the back and saw a dead body and was like, oh my fucking God, pulled up. And then dumped the car and ran away from the scene.
Yeah, or she smelled it.
Or she smelled it.
Which is because those, I feel like those cars are just kind of gross.
Ew.
Like, even if you pick up a person that's not decomposed from the hospital, like sometimes the bags are drippy.
Ew.
Like if they had like Hep C and they had like edema all over their bodies, sometimes it's just like all this fluid. And we always try to like dry them up as much as possible, but sometimes you just can't dry up a person. They just keep oozing and oozing and oozing. So it drips. Like I just always think those things are kind of like gross, but they're for dead bodies, so it's fine. But they do sometimes have a certain smell to them.
That's disgusting.
Well, that's what you get for stealing a car. You never know what you're going to find inside, and it happens sometimes that there's little kids in there too. It's terrible.
Oh yeah. So before we get on questions of the day, I have 2 notes I want to bring up from our last episode. One of which was about the dog story we covered in the crib. So one of you guys wrote in saying that you often work with dogs and you've seen that dogs, like huskies, as they age, tend to develop neurological issues, and that could have been the case, and maybe the family was not aware of it. So I thought that was really interesting. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was really helpful because especially people that work with animals and know their behavior so much, it makes sense, I guess, because the same thing can happen with people that have dementia and stuff. I guess the same thing could happen to animals too.
Yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting perspective. Another one of you wrote in giving us the definition of a serial killer, which I appreciate because I wasn't really sure about it last week. So you said the definition of a serial killer is someone who has committed killings on 3 separate occasions with significant time between them. So if the Idaho killings are all he's done, he's just a mass killer technically.
That's true. But you know what? I won't be surprised if that's the only ones he's done.
This person also said that there's evidence that he's maybe done something like this before, but obviously that we'll have to wait until more information comes out about the case. So
yeah, I don't think you just go from being like nerd teacher student guy to like doing something like that.
No, I mean
it's kind of like ballsy. Like I mean it's a big plot.
But we'll probably see the usual, like he killed small animals and then it started progressing into other things.
There's definitely a twist in this case, and I keep saying it. I don't know what it is. I just think that it's not as it appears quite yet.
Oh yeah. But thank you guys, because sometimes you message us and you clarify some things for us. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, we don't know everything. Actually, we don't know
that
much
really
at
know
all.
anything at all. We mess up all the time.
Yes, we do appreciate it.
All right, so now on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram, you guys could you could ask a question. We put a little box in the story that's up for 24 hours. You could ask us whatever you'd like. First, do bodies really make that squishy noise in real life like in movies and television?
Like what do you mean squishy noise?
I guess when they're like in a movie or a show working in a body, like doing an autopsy in the show, there's just a lot of noises happening.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does. You're playing in fluid, so I guess it could be squishy. I mean, especially like I was just talking about with that morgue van,
Yeah.
right? That I was saying that people could have anasarca or edema or fluid that's like in their tissue. So it's not just like it's not in their blood vessels, it's like in everything. Think about like a wet sponge kind of. It's just like soaked up into the organs, into the fat and everything. So there's some times that you do autopsies and there's just a lot of fluid in the lung cavities, the abdominal cavity, the organs are heavier. Just so yeah, it is squishy, I guess. There's been times that like one time I did an autopsy and this guy's belly was really, really distended, and I thought that it was fluid because his belly looked pregnant, and that's normally what it is. So I always make a very small nick before I do that so the fluid doesn't like gush all over my legs, right?
Ew.
So I make a small one and then I like take it out slowly with just enough to fit the ladle into the abdominal cavity. And I was with Phoebe actually doing this autopsy, so we should talk to her about that because we had a couple crazy autopsies that week that we ended up crying laughing after we got scared. So I made the little incision and it just made this noise, and we were like, because it ended up that there was air inside of it in his abdomen, there was no fluid. So that little tiny like hole I made just made this like whistling sound, and it scared the shit out of me and Phoebe. We were like, what the hell is that? Because we never experienced that. And you know, we ran out of the room like screaming, but we were like laughing, like couldn't stand up straight because we were laughing so hard.
Yeah,
know?
I mean, that sound is shocking to hear coming from a person's body.
It was.
All right. Next, have you seen anything that really churned your stomach?
Yeah. Probably one time we had a panis removed from someone that was like what would be considered super morbid obese. And it was infected, and the smell was just really, really terrible on it. It was a very big piece of skin with like a belly flap of skin.
Yeah.
I actually had to bring it down to the morgue to weigh it because it was so big. It was 75 pounds. I couldn't weigh it up in the gross room. And it smelled so bad that when we took it out of the biohazard bag in the gross room to cut it up and stuff, like it just smelled so bad that everyone had to leave the gross room because it smelled so bad.
I bet you wish you had some stink bomb that day.
Yeah, right. And also, yeah, we've had like several just different cases of that. One time I got a tampon that was in a woman's vagina for like years, and it just was like, it looked like what you would think a tampon inside a vagina would look like for years. Just like a ball of like cotton mess, but that really gross, like old blood green infection color. And it just smelled terrible. Like things that just smell really crazy, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Last question. Did you meet everyone you wanted to at CrimeCon?
Almost, but no.
Yeah, because you really wanted to meet Dr. Bodden, right?
I did. And I didn't even see him.
I didn't see him either. I wanted to meet Matt Murphy, who was walking in front of me and in the speaker room at the same time as us, actually, and I just was too like overwhelmed.
Yeah, we're like such cowards. We actually were in that back room with Nancy Grace, and we had the opportunity to go up to her and talk to her and ask her for a picture, and we were too shy to do that.
Well, it's also like we don't want to be.
Luckily, we
don't want to be rude and interrupt them either when they're talking to other people. You know.
I know, and I don't want to like stand in a line waiting like that either. I don't want to bother people. So, but I don't care when people bother me. So I just need to look at it that way, I guess. So yeah, so we did meet Nancy though, which was awesome, and we were able to get her like talk to her, which was cool for a couple of minutes there. That was nice. But regretting not getting a picture with her. Dr. Bodden, I wanted to meet Mark Garagos just because I wanted to take a picture with him too to send to Dr. Drew just to be like, yo, you know this jerk? And who else? I'm trying to think. Oh, Gabby Petito's parents were there. We didn't get to meet them, but we might be talking to them soon, hopefully. Who else was there? There was a lot of stuff that we missed because we didn't quite know what to expect. We didn't book our flights to be able. Well, I didn't because I had to get home to my kids. So I missed I essentially missed an entire day of like good stuff. That I wanted to see. So yeah, there's other people too that I just can't think of right now, but I'm very happy of who we did get to meet because yeah, that was really awesome.
Because I was just exposed to, you know, I watch specials with these people all the time, so when you see them in public, like our episode with Laura Ingle yesterday, right, you were like, I feel like I know you because I've been watching your coverage for the last 20 years. Which is surreal to see somebody in person.
And it's weird. It's weird because I just talk to her and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? What's up? Like, like I just feel like I know her.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say for the most part, we met everybody we wanted to and more. You know, there was a lot of people I didn't think we'd have access to and just got to have really good conversations with. So,
yeah, I mean, the whole thing was just awesome. And Kelly was awesome. And
Kelly and Kevin were like the nicest people in the world. Thank you so much for having us. Seriously.
Yeah, it was great. And everybody backstage was great. That one guy was, I didn't get his name. He was like really funny. Remember? He was like,
oh yeah.
Like people that were taking us back to the stage and stuff. Everybody was just like, oh, just relax, she'll be fine. And it made us like really comfortable. And the one guy just kept making hilarious jokes and he was awesome. So it was good.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys so much. We will see you next week.
See ya! Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks!